Question 1. For our film, we use the convention of a scary location. For example, the film is set in an old graveyard. After doing our research, we found that most horror films are set in graveyards, haunted houses, mental asylums, or even schools. The graveyard gave off a scary atmosphere, letting the audience know straight away that it is a horror film. The setting clearly indicates to the audience that the film will include paranormal and supernatural activity. Props were also used in our film inspired by the child horror films, for example, Annabelle, Chucky, The Conjuring, and many other films used children's toys to scare the audience. Similarly, we used a rag doll as the main prop for our film to create fear amongst the audience members. We also used the horror convention of point-of-view shots. A lot of horror films use point-of-view shots to build up tension amongst the audience members, as they do not know what to expect since they can only see what the characters are seeing. Our poster used the horror poster convention of using dark, gloomy colours. We decided that the main colours of our poster would be black, grey and red because these colours portray danger and fear. Almost all horror films such as Insidious and Orphan also use gloomy colours in the poster. This decision was also influenced by our audience feedback, for which we compiled a survey for our target audience to see what they would like from our poster. We found that our target audience also wanted to use dark, dull colours because that gave off a spookier vibe. This instantly lets the audience know that the poster is advertising for a horror film. Our radio trailer used the typical radio conventions of having a male presenter with a deep American accent. We chose for our presenter to speak this way because we felt as if it gave our trailer more of a Hollywood type effect.
The scariest horror film of the season. Be prepared for a hair-raising, eye-popping and nail-biting thrill of horror.
We also use the radio trailer convention of including dialogue from the actual film into the trailer so the audience can get a feel of what the film will include.
The floorboards creaked.
As danger approached them.
What's that sound?
How could you think such a sweet, innocent girl could be so terrifying?
Our trailer also had a start, middle and end, as it starts off slow and builds up into a climax and then slows down again, leaving the audience wanting more. Horror conventions developed. Our film developed the horror convention of the good versus bad theme. We had the good characters and the bad characters. However, as the film goes on, the audience find out that the villain of the film was originally the victim, as she was bullied and driven to commit suicide. We developed the horror convention of the villain having a motive for the attack on the victims of the film. Our villain came back to get revenge from her bullies due to everything she went through because of them. Our poster developed the convention of horror film posters having an extreme close-up shot of an object or person in the main image. For example, the poster for Carrie uses a close-up shot of the main character's face as the main image, and the Candyman uses a close-up of an eye. For our poster, we are using an extreme close-up of the villain's eye as the main image. However, we have decided to include something else into this. In the pupil of the eye, we will place a picture of the main prop, the teddy, from our film as a reflection to portray the fact that the teddy has a large part behind the character's motives. Our radio trailer developed the radio convention of having music and sound effects, as we also included a soundtrack with sound effects, and as it got to the middle of the trailer, the sound starts to layer up, create a climatic atmosphere.
It all started off with 4 ordinary girls living in an ordinary world. But little did they know that this camping trip was the last adventure they'd ever take. As danger approached them.
What's that sound?
How could you think such a sweet, innocent girl could be so terrifying?
We also developed the convention of the narrator giving the audience details about when the film will be in cinemas. However, the narrator in our film does not state a specific date for the film's release, and instead just says, "in cinemas soon," which leaves the audience eager to know more.
Bitter Revenge, coming to cinemas soon.
Horror conventions challenged. Our film challenged the typical conventions of horror films because instead of focusing on the villain in the film, we kept the focus on the main prop, which was the teddy bear. Most child horror films like Orphan and The Ring focused more on the girls that were playing the villain instead of the props. Another convention we challenged was that in most child horror films the children are the victims, whereas in ours the child was the villain and the older characters were the victims. Films usually have a linear narrative, which means that they follow a straight line, starting at the beginning, moving to the middle, and then proceeding to the end of the story. However, our film used a non-linear narrative which often starts at the middle of the story or the height of a conflict and then doubles back to the beginning. We did this by including a flashback scene in the middle of the film to reveal the character's past to the audience. Another way we have challenged the horror convention is that we decided to add a black and white filter to our film, apart from the flashback scenes, which goes against how all horror films in the 21st century are coloured. This made our film intertextual to movies made in 1920s, for example, Nosferatu. Our film's poster has challenged the conventions of typical horror films because of the way we have written the title of the film. For example, in the Insidious poster, the title was written in white and red. Instead of using dark and gloomy colours for our title, we decided to use various pastel colours in bubble writing, also known as the font double feature in the website DaFont. However, to keep that horror element to the title, we added drips of blood to it. This portrayed the idea of a childhood that has been demonized, which showed off our subgenre of child horror. From this, the audience would be able to tell the film would have something to do with children. Our radio trailer challenged the typical conventions of radio trailers as we did not reveal our release date to the audience like other trailers do. For example, a radio trailer I analysed was Oculus, and at the end of the trailer, they let the audience know the exact date of the release. Instead, our narrator just said, "Coming soon." Question 2. My film poster and radio trailer connect with each other as they all have that element of fear needed to portray the horror genre to the audience. From the poster, the audience could tell that it is advertising a horror film because we use dark, gloomy colours like black and red because this portrays danger and mystery. The fact that there is blood dripping off the title suggests that the film will include some sort of violence. We also decided to add a tagline to the poster saying, "You play with me, I play with you." This is an indication that the film may be about a revenge story along with the fact that the title of the film is Bit of Revenge. This shows that we managed to advertise our film through the title, the image and the tagline. These elements are what make the poster sellable and attractive, therefore connecting to the film. Also, the fact that the picture of Nyla, the villain, and the reflection of the teddy in her eye suggests that there is a connection between the two and that the revenge from the title must have something to do with the two. From the radio trailer, the audience get a quick 30 to 40 second insight on what the film will be like. This gives them the opportunity to decide whether the film is worth watching or not. During my research, I looked into the radio trailer for Oculus. This film used a lot of sound effects, and there is a constant static sound effect that was used to add more effect to the fear the audience feel already because it gives the impression some technological objects are being used.
My name is Kaylee Ann Russell. The purpose of today's experiment is to prove that the object behind me is responsible for at least 45 deaths in the 4 centuries of its recorded existence.
The use of the film's actual dialogue in the trailer is also very impactful because the audience already start to sympathise with the characters. From listening to all these radio trailers, we decided to add a nursery rhyme at the beginning of our trailer to let the audience know straight away that the film will be a child horror film.
The scariest horror film of the season.
We also included screams and dramatic music to make the audience sympathise with the characters from beforehand. After doing an audience feedback on the poster, we found that our audience liked the fact that there was a reflection of the main prop in the extreme close-up of the eye. However, they thought the poster was pretty plain and did not have a background. From the feedback, we decided to add the graveyard setting as the backdrop for the main image to make the poster appear more frightening. Altogether, they thought the poster and trailer worked really well in advertising the film because many aspects of the text made it clear to the audience what the film was about. To release our film, I would start by sharing the link of the radio trailer to let everyone in on the idea of the film. I would then upload the actual film onto my blog and onto YouTube. I would then WhatsApp and tweet out the link to the film. Another way of releasing the film would be to burn into a CD and to release as a DVD. We would release our film on Halloween because that day would relate well to our film's genre, horror. The uses and gratification theory suggests that the audience are not passive but take an active role in interpreting and integrating media into their own lives. The theory also holds that audiences are responsible for choosing media to meet their needs. For example, an individual may watch TV shows for entertainment, education, to identify with the characters, or for social interaction. We made sure that our poster and radio trailer would inform the audience of everything they would want to know about the film before watching it. For instance, the ambient music, spooky nursery rhyme and screams would let the audience know that the film is a horror movie, so they can decide whether they want to watch it for entertainment or social interaction, etc. Our marketing campaign would happen through social media such as Twitter, Facebook and Instagram, as our target audience are teenagers and will be more likely to watch the film if it is advertised and raved about on social media. Question 3. After conducting a survey on our horror films for our target audience, we found that most of our audience members preferred films that were set in spooky locations such as a haunted house or the woods, which is why we decided to set our film in a graveyard. More than 50% of the people we surveyed said that they prefer supernatural incidents to take place in a horror film. Because of this, we plan to focus more on the supernatural side of horror, so we have a character come back to life from the dead to haunt the other characters. Not many people said that they wanted to see too much of violence, which led us to keep that aspect away from our film, especially since it is classified 12A. We asked who they watch horror films with. Our audience members replied that they watch with their families, which is one of the reasons why we made sure not to include any inappropriate content. Almost 70% of our audience members said that they watch horror films as a form of entertainment. This is why we decided to make sure that we keep them entertained at all times in the film, which is why we tried to avoid filming any unnecessary scenes so we could dive straight into the horror aspect. When we asked our target audience why their favourite movie is their favourite, most of them said it was because they liked the way films used a spooky soundtrack to enhance the atmosphere of heightening the effect of the scenes. After conducting a survey on horror film posters for our target audience, we found that more than 90% of our target audience are more attracted to a film poster due to the image. Because of this, we decided that the main image of our poster should straight away tell our audience the main story of the film. We did this by using an extreme close-up shot of the villain of our film, with the main prop reflecting in her eye. We asked them what colours they would associate with child horror, to which most people replied black and red. This is why our entire poster, apart from the title, is dark, gloomy colours. When asked what they want to see included in the poster, most of the audience mentioned the main character, which again is the reason why we have used a picture of her as the main image of our poster. After conducting a survey on a horror film radio trailer, we found that our target audience are only influenced by radio trailers to watch a film if the trailer is descriptive enough for them to create a picture in their head of the incidents taking place. This is why we have added dialogues from the actual film and many sound effects to make it as realistic as possible for the audience listening to imagine what is happening. The audience also said that they'd like to hear a bit of silence in the trailer because it creates a bit of mystery and gets them wondering what could be happening next. When asked about sound effects, they said they like to hear sounds such as screams, footsteps and whispers. We took this into account and added screams and whispers to our trailer to give the audience a taste of what is to come. Most of the audience said that they want to hear creepy music in the background to create a threatening atmosphere, so we decided to add dramatic music to our trailer to make it more effective. The audience feedback we got from our teacher was that we need to incorporate more shots of the teddy bear in our film. We could incorporate the doll more in our film by showing the teddy on the gravestones coming closer and closer to show how the doll is used as a subliminal message which connotes danger. Our teacher also told us we need to match the lighting of our scenes as the lighting was different from each scene and didn't match. After getting feedback from our target audience, we found that we need to fix our lighting so the scenes match. Moreover, we need to incorporate the teddy bear in our film more to portray the audience that it is a key motive and a subliminal message in our film, which has a meaning behind it. We received feedback from Raj, a film practitioner, who said that there is a hissing sound in our film from the wind when we shot outdoors that needs to be removed in order to make the sound more clearer. He also thought our film was missing some sound elements such as sound effects and music. For example, we needed to add sound effects like twigs breaking, sound of crying, etc. We also had some issues on lighting that needed to be fixed. So he showed us how to use effects to correct the colour and the tone of our scenes. From the feedback we received from our focus groups of 3 students, we found that our flashback was too long and needed to be cut down. This is why we cut down the unnecessary flashback scenes from the girls, as each of the characters had a line where they spoke. But we cut it down to just them running around teasing Nyla, which gets straight to the point of her getting bullied. However, they did say that they liked that the flashbacks gave the audience a clear understanding on why Nyla is taking revenge, as it provides a little more information on why she is the villain. The hypodermic needle theory suggests that the mass media could influence a very large group of people directly by shooting or injecting them with appropriate messages designed to trigger a desired response. They expressed the view that the media uses a dangerous means of communicating an idea because the receiver or audience is powerless to resist the impact of the message. We use this idea in our film to express our view against bullying. The villain in our story was bullied and pushed into committing suicide. This indicates to the audience that bullying can lead to, although not supernatural, but very dangerous outcomes. Therefore, it is wrong. Question 4. For our film research, I used platforms and apps such as Netflix and Showbox to watch a lot of horror films so we could get some ideas for our film. I also went to the cinema to watch Annabelle because the main prop in that film is a doll, which is a very similar idea to ours. From this, I got the chance to see different camera work that is used in horror films to make the scenes more impactful. I also used the very popular search engine Google to research reviews on horror films to see what other people enjoy seeing and what they would prefer not to see in horror films. One other thing that was very helpful during our research stage was SurveyMonkey. This website allowed us to conduct surveys online for films, posters and radio trailers, so we could send it to our target audience easily without having to physically go over to them and write down their responses. We were able to send the link to the survey through social networking sites like Twitter, Facebook and mainly WhatsApp. We also used our mobile phones and dictaphones to record the voice of our target audience, because this way they have a chance to be more elaborate with their answers, which is harder to do in writing for some. Google was also very helpful when we were researching film posters because we could easily access horror film posters and analyze them to see what looks engaging in the poster so we could get some ideas on what brings the poster to life in terms of horror. The site that was most helpful to us was YouTube, as we used it to listen to radio trailers because we were finding it difficult to search for real radio trailers for films. We played trailers from YouTube and then minimized the screen so all we could hear was the sound. We also used YouTube to listen to different sound effects and soundtracks which could come into use in our film and radio. When planning our film, we used Final Cut Pro on the Mac computers to produce an animatic storyboard of our film using our own detailed drawings. This gave us an insight on how our film would look when finalized. If we did not like the use of certain camera shots and angles or movements, or thought the scenes were very unnecessary, we took it off of our script. We used the BBFC website to see what would be the best classification for our film. After seeing many exemplar films from the website, we decided that the best classification for our film would be a 12A, since we did not have much of violence or goriness in our film. We produced a radio trailer mood board where we picked out specific sounds that we would want in our radio trailer. For this, we embedded videos of scary music from YouTube and SoundCloud. We also embedded a video from the very popular social networking site Vine, which we used to show what kind of voice we would like from our presenter. The same was done for the poster mood board, where we put up pictures of other horror film posters to see what kind of things they included onto theirs, for example taglines. To shoot our film, we used the Canon Rebel T3i camera, for which we changed the camera's white balance setting to tungsten, because this setting of the digital camera cools down the color temperature, which gave our film a more gloomy look to bring out the horror aspect. To make sure that the sound was being picked up properly, we decided to use a mic that was connected onto our camera. This made the characters' dialogues come out clearer. When we filmed indoors, we wanted some artificial lighting so the scenes would appear brighter, as the room's lighting was not enough for this. We used a professional large light stand, which did the job perfectly. Some of the scenes outdoors also needed lighting, and since it was impossible to use lighting outside, we decided to use the flashlights from our iPhone to act as a spotlight. This worked very well for us as it made the characters stand out from the dark background. We used the same camera to take pictures of our poster by just changing the setting from movie to portrait. We took pictures of the location, main character and main prop, which will all be on the poster. This was a good piece of equipment to use because we could focus on the main image by blurring out the background, which made the pictures look more realistic. We used a vocal pack to record our sounds and added the music and sound effects using GarageBand on the Mac computers. All of the editing of our film happened through Final Cut Pro, where we imported all of our footage and edited it. There are many helpful tools in Final Cut that helped us perfect our scenes. For example, the blade tool was used to separate clips if we needed to add anything in between the different scenes. We also managed to layer audios from one scene to another to act as a voiceover. Photoshop helped us create our poster by editing and layering photos we took for our poster. We changed the brightness of the pictures to make it look more subtle and then added text on top of the pictures after it was finished.